Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empower podcast. This is another episode, and we have our guest, Cydian Kauffman. Hi, Cydian. Where are you coming to us from?
Hi, I'm from Seattle. How are you?
Better than I deserve. Thankful to be here, not alone, but together also. We have our co-host, David Powers. Hi, David.
Hey, what's going on?
Thanks for being here. So I want to start off the episode. First, if this is your first episode of Empower, what are we? We're a podcast founded by healthcare professionals and community healers for the general public and other healthcare professionals and community healers, with goals such as raising transparency and awareness within the healthcare field and the health and wellness sectors, hearing those conversations from those voices that often go unheard from individuals and organizations throughout the world. So I want to start off here, if we can, with the thank you and acknowledgement, Cydian. If there's any individuals or organizations that you'd like to thank or acknowledge at this time.
I mean, I guess I'd like to thank, as strange as as strange as this may be, because I have some criticisms there. I'd like to thank
Nothing
the
on
EPA
here.
for at least attempting to set some standards for water treatment and helping create some data there.
Any acknowledgement or thank you of any organizations, because there's a lot of them out there, and there's some that don't get acknowledged or looked at or their time or day. So, wow. So,
that's a pretty one, right?
yes, no, absolutely. And to see that, the initiatives that are going on in other areas of the world can really set that framework, for other humans throughout whatever it is we're up to, because there's a lot of relatedness that we have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the EPA, they're helping. They're helping create a...
Yeah, what's happening in healthcare? What's happening in health and wellness? Go ahead. What's going on? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that, they're helping create a framework. They're doing something. They're not perfect by any stretch, but they are, without them, we would definitely be kind of Mad Max as far as water goes. And I have a huge focus on water. That's basically what we do. But, right now I think everyone's arguing about fluoride. And, it's the big topic in the U.S. right now. And fluoride is a funny thing because, you go to other areas like Scandinavia, Denmark, Norway, Finland. They don't fluoridate water, and their dental outcomes seem to be better. Whether that's because of low sugar or not, I don't know. But the thing is that when people talk about fluoride, they don't really get into the data. And I'm a super data-driven person. And I usually find that things are true when you have two sides of an argument, right? People just saying, no, there should be absolutely no fluoride. And hey, if you don't fluoridate, we're going to have rotten teeth. Neither side is actually fully accurate. The dose matters, the application matters, so I don't know. I like to get into actual data on topics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, data-driven decisions, I think, are what are going to drive consumers. Yeah.
City water, correct? Not well water.
Ooh, good question.
Correct. Well, you can actually, you can have some naturally occurring fluoride, but basically, if other than that rare occurrence, fluoridation is occurring in city water, not well water, yeah. And go ahead.
What kind of things are you treating in the Pacific Northwest other than the typical diseases? We all hear about pharmaceuticals or medicine and then plastics in our water. And in 1971, when the EPA was created by Nixon, a Republican president, they didn't consider all that kind of thing. They only considered non-source point pollution. I used to be a civil engineer, so I used to have to develop things. So we had to take consideration of soil.
Yep.
And that is considered a pollutant in the water system, from
right.
Wherever that is.
Yeah, I mean, which is a funny thing because there are much more dangerous pollutants, but it is considered a pollutant. When we're dealing with the hydrologic cycle, when we're trying to treat water for municipalities, the water is going to run across just about everything before it gets to wherever it's held and then drawn out and delivered to people. So in order to do that, you have to do a broad spectrum of treatment. In the Northwest, we've got the same considerations they have in most places, and almost every place is using chlorine, or nowadays chloramines, in order to treat the water and oxidize elements. Chlorine's great in the sense that without it, we'd have a ton of people dying from bacterial problems. But it's unfortunate in other ways because it creates just a giant list of chlorine byproducts that a lot of people may not want to be drinking, like trihalomethanes and dibromochloroacetic acids and chloroform.
Meanwhile, it's in 80% of ourselves, water. And,
Yep,
that's
right.
And that's not just the micro level, but the macro level, and we're sharing that. We're bags of water walking around, on this planet, and full of whatever else now, and we're finding it out. So the thing is, are we going to filter ourselves, So, I mean, what's next, Or we already do. It's dialysis, or something similar. So, but that's just, that's just for blood, but still to see that we're really leaning in with water. I mean, it's great to hear two other minds do this, especially from me, because I've even gone to the point, and this may, hold on for this one, Cydian, I've had that irk moment where I go to the tap and I have to fill up a patient's water bottle, and I'm filling it right out of there. And I've been a travel nurse, and like you said, it depends on where it is you're at. From what I know too, and I'm still learning. It's one of the beautiful parts about this is the discovery aspect, I think, was that each actual I believe if it's either by zip code, but it can all be different levels based upon it. And the one that I keep finding, and is the reoccurring one, at least in the United States, that no one talks about for water quality, is Flint, Michigan. I do want to bring up Flint, Michigan. And I don't know if there's anything you want to. Oh, look at this! All right, yeah, let's lean in. There's nothing wrong here. Let's discover with Flint and David. Please add on to this, because I actually worked as a travel nurse. Who, that's the one thing he said about visiting Michigan. He's like, just don't go to Flint right now. And I was like, what? And I was like, he's like, but Michigan's beautiful. And I'm like, this is something else. But forget the Ohio State and Michigan rivalry that potentially could exist. Just for cheer. But like, it's more about, hey, I'm going to save your life with the water. You can go anywhere else in Michigan, but no. But yeah, what do you know? What have you discovered?
Well, what I know about Flint is that you probably could have visited Flint unless you were in certain areas. You would have been okay.
Okay.
The size of population affected was, I can't remember. I'm trying to get that data here. There's about 100,000 people. So the number of households were about 30,000 households, though. And the city spent, let me remember.
And it's not just Flint. I'm not trying to down Flint either. I mean, it's interesting to have the conversation, because it's like a pick and choose almost. Like, and when you talk about each one, you discover what their story has been with water. I have no other way to say it. Like, that's the trail, is with water.
Yeah, right. So they spent $350,000 on water quality improvements, according to what I just researched, right? And here's my thing about Flint, and this is a big pet peeve for me. There was a lot of theater going on from politicians regarding Flint.
Okay.
And if you think about the problem, we've got 30,000 homes that have lead. Reverse osmosis solves that problem. You make a deal with China to get 30,000 ROs delivered, and you're going to spend maybe, back in those days, dollars, maybe $50 per RO, maybe $100. That's $3 million max, right? We're talking at the maximum. And then the actual installation, more than half of those people would be able to install it themselves. The other half, they just do partnerships with local plumbing companies who want to donate their time. We get the problem solved in like a few months, and then we buy ourselves time to fix the infrastructure. They end up spending hundreds of millions of dollars on fixing the infrastructure. Meanwhile, they all had the water problem. They were living with it. I don't actually understand why they handled things that way. But what seems like it was is similar to what happened with the Red Hill thing in Hawaii. It seems like there's this strong desire to protect the view of the problem. And and try and mitigate people's opinion about the problem rather than just fixing the problem really, really fast. I don't like that approach. That's why the Red Hill problem, pretty easy to fix. The Flint problem, pretty easy to fix. I mean, long term, the infrastructure harder, but getting people immediate care, pretty easy. So,
right.
Yeah, you got infrastructure issues like that, but Carbon County in PA, where they did oil testing for tunnel drilling, and they used chemicals when they back flushed the horizontal drilling, then contaminating the water supply or the
with
aquifers, which you can't reverse, not easily.
No, but you can do a treatment system in people's homes for that. So that's a very good example. We've got a Flint, Michigan happening again right now, like right now in Pennsylvania, right? Do we know how many people are affected?
Probably about 500,000.
Okay, now that's a little more expensive because the system that treats for VOCs at that level are today's dollars. If you make a deal with a really inexpensive company, because the problem is it's not just for drinking water. When it comes to jet fuel, you don't want that on people's skin either.
Right. It's very highly corrosive.
Yeah, so now you have to do whole house water treatment in homes. I mean, you could intersect with the line. You could actually take the line that is going to all those homes and put a gigantic, I guess it would be a catalytic carbon of some kind, followed by osmosis. Would probably be the thing to do. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we do research, and in our organization, I've got people who know more than I do about water. That's for sure. Our founder, Chris Pelton, would be the guy to go to for that. But the solution is still there. I would imagine the price point would be in the $500,000. That still seems like a really low cost. If the problem is not the pipes, like it was in Flint, where you have to go into everyone's individual home, if the problem is in the water supply, I would imagine $500,000 to fix it pretty fast would be not very much money for 500,000 people.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of pollution in our water.
Yeah.
And our country is very lucky that we have several points of water sources. In your area, I believe it's the Colorado River.
Yeah.
And then you got the river that comes through Canada, correct? Through the Pacific Northwest. That comes out of Washington, I believe. Right? That's where the bay is. I'm assuming that. So we have a lot more water sources, whereas in Africa, you may not have plain water, and you may not be able to separate your waste from your clean water source either.
Yep.
So that is another consideration. I know that in areas where we have wells, we have to make sure that the drainage field for your waste is separate from that, so it doesn't contaminate the natural water aquifers. What's your opinion on agriculture and stuff? Just a lot of your areas are being affected out that direction, especially with the droughts and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like I want to go off in 10 different directions from what you just brought up. For starters, with Africa and places that are more arid and have a broad area of land with less rivers running right through them, you're digging down, you're doing boreholes for water, or you're walking a very long distance to get water if you don't have a borehole. And then that creates just this massive gender inequality problem. You've got who are going to be getting the water? It's going to be women or children, which means they are not in school and they are not doing their own job. If that's the case, they are fully reliant on men for all of their money, all of their survival, which makes there be a major gender imbalance. It puts power in one area and no ability to self-actualize or do anything for yourself in another. And so a single borehole where you allow people to pull up water and hopefully then do some rudimentary treatment, but some water is better than no water. That changes societal structures. I mean, it changes social structures in an area. It allows children to go to school. It allows women to get a job if they need to get away from a man. It changes things dramatically. And so everything, whether it's in Africa or here, is affected by the hydrologic cycle. You are having water pour across the ground and into basins, whether it's underground or not. And whether it's there or here, any contaminant could be in that water, which is why we always say test, don't guess, test. Find out what's actually in
Yes,
the water.
I like that. I would do the same with a human. And isn't it, I'm listening here, I don't want to interject you, but isn't 1 in 4 people in the whole world have access to clean drinking water? 1 in 4,
know, right?
Cydian. Think about that. I'm glad that we are all at least one of the 4. So, but no, sorry, I need to cut you off there. Keep going, but it does. And I'm glad you're talking about the power dynamics, because this is over just water. We haven't talked about all the other things that are occurring that potentially there'd be a reliance on another human for, whatever it may be, and especially if someone is seeking shelter or asylum in whatever way that it may be. And if it's over water, my gosh, of all things, is us as a human race, right? It'd be about water. So, and I mean, like, yeah, please continue to share. I didn't mean to get you. I just wanted to definitely throw that one in there, because I looked that one up before our episode, and I was just really blown away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, right? With the world that's like 70% water and like 25% people have access to clean water. But then again, the world is not 70% clean water.
Correct. Yes.
So that is the difference. The world is like mostly salt water, right?
Yep.
What do you know about desalination, Cydian?
I mean, I know that it is going to be our future. I know that. I mean, that is where everything is going to go as far as solving any water crisis. It is going. I like to talk about this, even though it's really far in our future. It may be in our lifetime, maybe. I'd love to talk about how desalination and cold fusion relate, because heavy hydrogen, that like the extra hydrogen molecule that tends to be bound to the atom in seawater, that really dovetails really nicely into the energy that you would source for cold fusion. And we've just like very recently gotten our first in a perfect setting cold fusion reaction occur, like super recently. But it was in a perfect setting. It's not like we have cold fusion now.
Right.
It's not like we're in the future yet, but we're getting there. And we can see a future where we have these plants that are pumping water from the ocean and creating with the same device, creating power and water with the same actual device.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That is a cool future, right?
And it's just the tip.
As long as cool things happen with it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of innovations are you coming up with in your neck of the woods? I know it's always raining, so your climate's very similar to England's and whatnot. Yeah. What kind of rain catchment stuff are you be able to use to be able to actually get that water and then?
Yeah, the innovations there are not that exciting. They're things like the floats that catch from the top area of water. I mean, the innovations are actually just old technology repurposed, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's not, as far as rain catchment go, which is definitely something that should be being done more. And Seattle proper is giving incentives actually for rain catchment.
Wow.
But most of the outlying areas are not still, which is weird. I don't know why they don't all, but I guess it's also because it would cost them, maybe it's because it would cost them money to allow everyone to just do it. But the reason Seattle's doing it, I think, is because it lessens the stormwater
Gotcha.
runoff. So there's some financial benefit to them for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I wanted to touch a little bit upon the homesteaders and farmers. You were talking a little bit about agriculture. We have people that wanting to go away from the city. They want to be able to find their own water source. And I just didn't know if that's something that's kind of changed the pivot for what it is that you're up to in the world, and even more in other innovations too. I get Seattle, and I didn't even know they would even go down to incentives for rainwater. That makes sense. But I guess for me, that's just a big thing I think, trending on the internet too, can be the homesteaders and people. Obviously, there's, like you said too, the no fluoride in my water. Then there's other people that are the microplastics that are in various parts of their bodies that we're talking about. So and then what was the other one? You guys mentioned pharmaceuticals. And I can tell you this from a nursing standpoint, having worked in the emergency room at the main part of the Cleveland Clinic, again, not to down them, but what I had heard for the disposal of fentanyl, when I had to dispose of it, was in the sink. So, and we would say it was for the fishies.
Oh, my God.
Yep, it's for the fishies. So that's the way that I was taught. And in more than one area.
So potent. I'm so surprised.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget it too. So, and this was like 2018. So that's what occurred. Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many other nursing homes and other healthcare facilities, it's one of the ways that they're disposing of their narcotics. Not all of them. I'm not here to down them. I'm not here to defame, correct? But I will say what is shown, what I have witnessed with my eyes. So, correct. Yeah. And you're up to something, because, what do you do? The other part is, for me, I'm like, is that pharmaceutical, although it could go into the water and do what it is that potentially could occur, not to mention the salmon and stuff. I've heard about salmon that they've even done research on, and they've looked on their overall percentages within their water, which is still present in their body, right? So it's the way that they manage it. But I guess the thing that's getting me is the homesteaders. Again, I'm coming back to that, because I feel like even if someone were to say, be a homesteader, fishing in a river, like we're still talking about, it's still up against it. They're still up against water. So, is there anything that's occurring for you from that at this time, or is it maybe still on a slow burn? What does that look like, Cydian?
Well, I know there are people who are doing it. That's all I know. I know, and we've had some of those people as clients, because there's a weird kind of cool dream that can actually happen right now in 2025. I mean, it probably could have happened in...
Yo, make it sound outrageous. What does it look like? Yeah, paint the picture for everyone. What is it? What does it look like? What's out there in the ethos? Yes.
The crazy thing that can occur nowadays is a person can be on land, they can have a modern house, power, electricity, water, everything, with zero connection to anybody else and zero cost. They can have their entire house powered by solar, and in this area, as long as they have enough surface area, the entire house can be covered. And with the batteries that we have nowadays, you can be entirely off water by having a water source. Treatment is highly recommended for your water, but and then you can have farmland and have enough water for your farmland, a river nearby to fish. You can literally live in this completely except for paying taxes. Other than paying taxes, you could, and some people have found ways to escape that. And if that happens, you could literally live entirely isolated from anything without ever having to pay anything or deal with any money at all.
Hopefully an emergency never happens, too, because we as humans never have emergencies. Ever. We never have one.
Assuming you're right.
I get what you're saying. No, I get it. It is up there. There are pros and there are cons. I guess that's the best way for me to say it, Cydian. Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, and I get it. But people are up to it, and you're seeing it on the day-to-day. And some people are saying, yeah, you don't have to pay for it, but it's like, okay, well, you pay the mortgage and for the materials and the building and everything else, and then maybe you are making your payments on then too. Each contract I'm sure is different, but you're up to something in 2025. It's like one of the things people want to do, and it's amazing. What is it? 16 of our presidents were farmers, so go figure.
That's right. Wow, I didn't know that.
I know. Yeah, I know, and I'm still discovering too. So, and I can only imagine what their mindsets were on water too. So there's all history with water, not just what it is, I guess we could say and examine through our own testings, but even more what they were saying back of whatever, or even if it was a priority. I think the last thing I think they had when the 13 colonies were starting to be assembled was a hospital. It's one of the last things that they had. Yeah, in Boston. It makes you, yeah, they have everything else. We built everything else, and I'm sure they even made sure water was somewhat potable, but we didn't have a hospital yet. So I get what you're saying too.
I do know Philly had its first water treatment plant in the 1800s.
They did. I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow. And they also had the fund from Ben Franklin too, huh?
Well, Philadelphia was the second capital city of the United States at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was New York City at one point. I recently found that out.
Or the vibe of like popularity, big city. Yeah. Wow.
What kind of innovations in your area, Cydian, are you facing in the Pacific Northwest?
Facing? You mean coming up against? Like what?
Coming up against. What are you, creating? What are you doing as far as water retention and water cleaning and that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, our company, we haven't even talked about our company, but I'm not really here to talk about our company, but it is called Pure Water Northwest, and then we have a partner company called Poseidon Water Products. And the Poseidon basically does the work of creating customizable and really high quality water treatment products. Those water treatment products are designed really, really, really carefully. And they are, but the thing is, we have some products that are pre-made. You can't actually treat water that way though. Water is, the amount of fresh water that is perfectly clean with no contaminants, no giardia, no cryptosporidium. No
right. None of them.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Yeah, I get what you're saying. The ivory tower water, right?
The ivory tower, perfect, unbelievable water. I don't think like 0.0000001% of the planet's water is like that. The drinkable water on the planet is like less than 2%.
Yeah, I heard less than 2% too. Yeah,
most of that is captured in glaciers. So, like, we're talking about like a teeny tiny percentage of the Earth's water can be drawn up to actually drink, and almost all of that has some contaminants that you might want to get out. But you want to test. You want to test first, identify exactly what is in the water, then customize your treatment based on that, because you don't want to over-treat. You don't want to assume, because the thing that can happen if you're just treating for your hardness is you can be collecting arsenic in the treatment system and then release it in large doses that you drink.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How is arsenic treated or over-treated?
So, to talk about what I was just saying, let's say you notice you have hardness in your water. You're like, oh, my skin feels, I've got scale buildup on my plumbing and my skin and hair feels dry. Okay, great. You put in a softener to treat that. Arsenic then can bind inside the actual media and then can release in a big dose. So arsenic that you have at like 0.003, for example, in the water, parts per million, right? Can build up, and suddenly you're drinking 0.5 parts per million of arsenic in one glass. That's why testing is really important, because if you notice you have arsenic, you're going to want to put in either a reverse osmosis or a whole house system that has Dioxide media, SBG2, NTO. Sorry.
No, I get it. This kind of reminds me of antibiotics. Like, you have to make sure, first of all, if you get a baseline, you have to see what you're up against, right? No matter what the percentages are, and then how you can go and bring it back to, the term is homeostasis, I guess, or the way that it would be for our bodies. But is that what you're kind of doing? But you still have to get your baseline, good, bad, or indifferent, what it is first. You have to see it, right?
You're right. In fact, the reason why we do it this way is because the founder of our company, Chris, he was an EMT. So he basically spent
Thank you,
his
Chris.
time in it. What was that?
I gave a shout out to Chris. I said, thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. And he was an EMT, so he spent his time like first assessing the situation, just like doctors do, defining the problem, and then specifically targeting the problem. I mean, that's how you solve any problem, right? If you're doing it right. So
I agree.
that is what anyone should be doing for water. And honestly, the majority of the companies are not pushing that because it is a harder sell. As soon as a person's experiencing a problem, they only notice what they notice, and everything else just seems like upselling. But it's not. We really should treat as the water.
Yeah, water's day to day. Yeah, day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour. It's circumstantial, and we need it. So I get it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This has been good, and I am glad that we're at the point where, like you said too, where you could go in 10 different directions. Love for that. But I would like to see if we could bring this episode here to a close. If you could bring us to a close with this with an empowering quote, Cydian. And if you'd like to come back again, we'd love to have you. Thank you for appearing and sharing all that you got to share. For those who maybe not even know as a baseline where to start with water.
The empowering quote? Okay. Mm-hmm. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. Edward Dennis.
I like it. That's so true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And David, is there anything you would like to share before we close?
Water is essential, right? So if you don't have water in the 7 days, you die. So, Cydian, what can we do to increase the accessibility for water?
Yeah, accessibility is really hard to solve because it requires infrastructure and it requires people to care. So what I actually think is one of the best things people can do is gather data and not fool themselves into thinking that the water is good. And then with data, you can talk to power. I mean, another quote, Richard Feynman said, the first principle is admit you must not fool yourself. You are the easiest person to fool. That's why you gather data. And then when you have data, if we're trying to create accessibility, it is very hard for a government or a local purveyor to argue with data. And so if you're having a problem in whatever area you're in and they're not providing you with water, bring them data. And it might, I'm not saying that this is a golden arrow or anything. It might help is all.
Yeah, and when in doubt, find a bucket, fill it up, go to your town meeting, and put it on that table. So if they need to. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Thank you, David. Thank you, Cydian, and thank you all for listening to another successful episode of the Empower Podcast. Thank you. Bye for now. Hello, everyone. If you are listening to this, you've reached the end of the episode with Cydian, and we want to throw in our overall call to action, as at this time, Empower is sponsored by Eunoia Health Tech, as was this episode. What is so in the world is 30,000 USA veterans last year alone were homeless at one time or another. Also, about 4.3 trillion of the 10 trillion spent on health globally is spent in the United States alone. Despite this huge investment, there are still wide disparities in health and health spending across the country and the world. The predictable future, if nothing is done, is more homeless, more low income, and more veterans will continue to suffer and not be able to pivot or recreate. The way of the future could be classes of 100 individuals with the support to learn a skill or trade for the rest of their life while having a roof over their head and being able to find and acknowledge the possibility that they are of purpose, recreation, and personal transformation. My name is Brett Bazzelli. I'm one of the co-founders of Eunoia Health Tech. I'm one of the hosts of the Empower podcast. Thank you for all of your support and listening. And bye for now.